What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Update 1.2.18 for the First Descendant is currently being deployed across all their servers. The game is in maintenance mode right now, but we do already have the patch notes, so I thought it'd be good for us to go through the patch notes and essentially see what came with this update. It's not the biggest update we've ever seen. There are some key things which are happening with this update for the longevity of the game, but I think we should also pretty much call this update what it is, and that is the jiggle physics update. So dynamic motion, as they're calling it, is something that has been requested for, I guess, like since season 1 or the preseason of the game. I suppose a lot of guys who play Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball also play this game, so Gooners rejoice. This feature is finally now in the game, and when you log in, you'll be able to see all this shaking in all its glory. So when we go through the patch notes here, starting us right off the rip, we can see dynamic motion, as I mentioned, has been added. This actually has 3 strength settings: weak, medium, and strong. Medium is the default. There's no way to turn it off, it seems. And basically, as I said, this will increase the jiggliness of the characters in the game. I do think, however, this only applies to the females. I don't know if we'll see, Ajax's fat hog like swaying in his pants as he's jumping around the battlefield. But of course, we'll have to test that once we actually have access to the game and we can actually see what is going on. All right, so you could access this, of course, in the options, gameplay, display settings. Then, gameplay-wise, we have something new called arc tuning. Now, basically, what this is we have the arc tuning board, and now we have these special nodes which are essentially being added. And the idea behind these nodes being that they further on empowers skill-based builds. I believe that the idea here is to try and bridge the gap between the strength that we see in weapon-based builds versus what we see in skill-based builds. For the longest time, skill-based builds were the thing, and then of course with weapon cores and everything like that being added to the game, it kind of like skewed it completely in the opposite direction. And basically, at the moment right now, weapon-based builds are super strong, where skill-based builds struggle a little bit. So as I said, this is arc tuning. I think they're called mutant cells, are supposed to be able to change this, or at the very least start bridging this gap. So they do mention that all arc tuning settings and presets will be reset with this update. So if you had a whole bunch of different presets set up for all your characters, all your descendants, sorry, that shit's gone. You're gonna have to reset them all up again. It basically then explains how this mutant cell works. So essentially, it's a different node than the others because it doesn't actually require any arc tuning. By the way, I just want to say, when I say resetting your arc tuning, doesn't mean like you lose your arc levels or anything like that. So if you were 40 out of 40, you're still going to be 40 out of 40. You don't lose any of that. You just lose your presets. So basically the setups that you have for different builds. All right. So then you essentially, after activating the mutant cell slot, it must be unlocked. You can unlock this by using using a material that essentially drops in the game. And this material is, of course, available from running Sigma Sector. So it's something that we do by default already. Now, these mutant cells can essentially be equipped to a loadout, and they are not shared between loadouts. So every time, if you have 3 different loadouts, you'll have to re-equip the mutant cells for each one of these. You can't just copy the loadout or something like that. That's just, I don't know, some weird functionality there. You can have one mutant cell in, and then if you want to change it to a different mutant cell, you actually have to override it with another one. I believe there's also an extract feature here, and this essentially uses something called arc genetic scissors, so you can actually pull these out, I believe, if you don't want to actually override them with another one. So that's something that's also available. And again, this material is also available from Sigma Sector. Now, let me just scan through here. Then, of course, how do you get these? All right, so they don't just drop by default. Essentially what it says is mutant cells can be acquired by opening a spoils box and selecting the mutant cell you wish to acquire. So it seems like we'll have a choice of some. So if you're specifically trying to target, a specific mutant cell, maybe it drops like 2 or 3 and you can pick between 2 or 3, or maybe it drops all of them and you can pick one out of the entire list or something like that. Again, don't really know right now. We're gonna have to test it as soon as the patch drops, and then we'll see. Now it says that acquired mutant cells can be found in the mutant cell inventory in the arc tuning board. So there's an inventory screen for all of the mutant cells that you found. Obviously, you can find duplicates, you can find more of, because in the case of you overriding one, then of course you'll need a replacement one if you've overridden one of your mutant cells. The spoils box, which contain these, can be acquired from doing Sigma Sector, obviously, and there's a completing So there's a chance, a 5% chance in a high risk, and a 2.5% chance in a normal difficulty. So it seems like these will be kind of rare. 5% is not that high at all. That seems really, really low. That's kind of crazy. Okay. But in any case, we'll have to see. That's weird though. That's really low. I'm kind of like hovering on this point now. But yeah, anyway. Okay, so then the other Sigma sector can, you can also acquire these by doing 400% infiltrations at a very low chance, and that'll obviously be a lower than 2.5% chance. So I don't know, maybe like a 1% chance or whatever. Okay, so then actually moving on to the mutant cells themselves, there's a whole bunch of these here. I don't know if I'm specifically going to read through each one of them. Maybe we can just quickly breeze over them. So we have attack neutralization and defense neutralization, both of these. By the way, these also have socket types, so of course you have to match them to the socket types of the specific socket that you're trying to put in. Very much to how we essentially set up Descendant modules and of course weapon modules as well. So the first one here says on skill attack upon enemies with max HP, it essentially minuses their attack and their attributes, so it's a debuff. Then we have defense neutralization, which does the same thing, but instead of attack and all attributes, this does minus on defense and all attribute resistances. So this kind of like seems like the superior one for me, because this will mean that the enemy is less strong. You'll be able to kill them faster. Generally speaking, I prefer to kill stuff faster than actually take its attack down, because a dead enemy can't attack you, whereas an alive enemy with a lesser attack still deals damage. So yeah. Then we have Battlesuit Efficiency Enhancement. On skill hit grants this. What this is it has max stacks 4. It gives you more defense and more defense per stack. So this is like juicing up your defense essentially. Arc Efficiency, this gives you more skill power, also on 4 stacks. This seems to be a really nice one. Basically you end up with 10% more skill power from the looks of it. Yes, about 10%, just under 10%. Then we have Arc Reload that says when reloading you get this effect and it gives you skill critical hit rate for 30 seconds. This seems really good. This seems really, really nice. Singular Fusion, what this does is it gives you more it gives you more range on singular effects, and it gives you more duration on fusion effects. So this is kind of like specifically targeting those two different types. Then we have Singular Tech, which is singular in tech, giving you more range and more power. So yeah, you just have all of these different ones targeting different damage types basically. So this is gonna be interesting, because these, I mean, the level of increase that we get here, right, is not broken. Right? Yes, 34% additional skill effect range is really, really good, but like 5% more skill power is not like, it's not like, oh my god. It definitely helps. It definitely is more power. This gives you less skill cost, everything like that. So these are not gonna be like game breaking, or at least I should be careful when I say shit like that, and then something in the game, some Descendant in the game uses one of these and essentially one taps everything. I'm thinking Innis with this would be really good as well. But in any case, this I think is just kind of like trying to just up the power game a little bit more. As you can see, all of this is about skill damage, right? Not a single one of these actually affect weapon damage. All right. Then skill enhanced arc, when remaining shield is above a certain percentage, it increases your skill power by almost 10%. So as long as you have more than 50% max shield, you have 10% more skill power. That's pretty good. Remaining shield is above a certain percent skill crit damage, crit hit damage. Then we also have final preparations. When attacking enemies with the 4th skill, grants final preparations, which gives you skill effect range and skill power. This is pretty good. I mean, some of these are going to be really, really fun to experiment with. Then we have burn, vulnerability, frostbite, electrocution, and poison. Essentially, just whenever you use one of those, it increases your skill power as well. Look, a lot of these are just going to be a little bit more, cream on top for these skill-based builds. And I personally prefer skill-based builds to weapon-based builds. You cannot argue with the strength of weapon-based builds, but I've always liked this. One of the reasons why I like Innis so much. So a lot of these are going to be really, really, good to kind of like experiment with. These cohesion ones seem to also be very sexy, which basically says when defeating an enemy, it has a chance to grant you the cohesion effect. This has a trigger rate of 50% and a duration of 10 seconds, and it can stack 3 times. What this does is it actually increases your skill power by just like about 18-19%, something like that, so just under 20%, and again matched to all of the different elements. Then we also have some some survivability ones here, which gives you resistances. I don't think I'll ever fucking use this shit. But in any case, there we go. So always a good idea to check out the director's comments, because they kind of like give you an idea of what, why they're doing this. They're saying that this newly adopted mutant cell is designed to enhance the battle efficiency of skill dealer descendants. However, we do recognize that there's still a performance gap to firearm dealers. So like I said, I don't think this closes the gap necessarily completely, but definitely gets us there. We plan to bridge this gap in a careful and gradual manner rather than hastily rushing to eliminate it. Look, I think they're scared of Freyna and Innes. Both of those descendants were ridiculously powerful when they came on and kind of like turned the game on its head, where it made running around with a weapon fucking useless because they were just shredding entire groups of enemies. Freyna back in the day was insane, and then of course Innes came out and just kind of like just took it to the next level. So I think they're scared of getting back into that situation again. That being said, there are some weapon combos in the game right now which, I mean, make skill-based game builds look like shit. So I mean, I think they got a way to go. They're also saying once the performance gap among skill dealers has been filled to some extent, we will be adding more mutant cells with a wide range of effects to diversify gameplay styles. They're also saying that there's another thing that's coming on June 19th, which is an external components core update. This will support the growth of defensive abilities of descendants, basically, I guess, making the survivability a little bit better. That being said, again, my comment to this is there's not a lot of difficult content in the game right now. Survivability is not necessarily the biggest problem in the game right now. What's hilarious to me is that these days you can essentially just build like almost no HP, everything like that, just so external components can carry you. And if you have decent enough AoE damage and stuff like that, you can just burn through everything and it doesn't really matter. All right, so then in addition, we'll offer new opportunities for you to set skill dealer descendants in more aggressive ways. We will continue to keep a good balance of the game. So there's, of course, like another sweep coming to external components on June 19th. Okay, then the other big thing that is added with this update is a new Void Abyss boss. So we now have the Ice Maiden, so the Ice Element boss has finally been added. The same requirements that we saw before, so Mastery rank 18, and you have to have completed this mission, this quest. This is a chill attribute Ice Maiden, meaning, or boss, meaning that the boss is going to be weak to fire. And it's also mentioned here that essentially the mechanic of this boss is that the more of the sort of parts of the boss that you blow off, as they say, when entering Void Reflux mode, Ice Maiden is weakened as you destroy more number of parts in the normal mode. When entering Void Reflux mode, which is essentially the juiced up version, is when the boss aggros or basically goes into frenzy, it creates a snowstorm to press the field, so you kind of like have to avoid that damage. I do, however, also believe that what we've seen every single time with these Void Abyss bosses is that whichever element is their counter element has such a big advantage on these bosses that you're able to kill them within seconds of the boss essentially spawning, thereby mitigating or sidestepping a lot of the components or mechanics of the fight. I don't think that Ice Maiden is going to be any different here. We are simply going to have to slot in a fire element based weapon or a fire element based descendant. I think Blair is probably going to be good here. I think our boy Lepic with the old arm cannon, I'm definitely looking forward to trying that out here. I don't imagine that this Void Abyss boss is going to be any more different than the other ones in terms of killing them. We saw Tormentor being the easiest one out of the lot of them, essentially dying like to a sniper shot or 2 sniper shots within seconds. So I I don't know if Ice Maiden is going to be any different. They do, however, also mention that they have adjusted the HP increase that you see when you go in as a party against these bosses. I can comfortably say that for me, when I'm farming these Abyss bosses, these Void Abyss bosses, I prefer to just do them solo. It's a lot faster, it's a lot easier to coordinate, and I mean, you don't have to worry about like 3 people showing up that is, have no business to be in this fight even, and therefore you have to carry. That was, of course, because previously, right, you can see the multipliers here for how much it was increasing the defenses and the HP and the shield of the boss, right? So in 2 players, it was almost doubling it. In 3 players, it was a little bit more than 2.5ing it, and then in 4-player it was basically, you know, 3.2 times, 3.23 times what it was if you were doing it solo. This has all been adjusted now, so it's far more easy to do this in a group now because the boss is far less tougher, right? So this is on a, if you and a buddy go in, it's basically a little bit less than 1.5 times stronger, so an additional 42% HP basically. And then with 3 players, it doesn't even reach 2 times, and then with 4 players, it's twice. But there's like 4 of you now, so you should be dealing 4 times as much damage, so the clear time should be relatively the same. So yeah, I think this is cool though. I know that there are a lot of people who still play this game with buddies or who like to team up and everything. That's of course another big thing with this update, is the teaming up system, matchmaking and stuff like that has been adjusted. So I think this is a big point for them and something that they really, you know, want people to play together, so this is a step in the right direction. We can also see here that the rewards have been massively increased. So instead of getting 3 modules, we get 6 now. Instead of getting 8 external components to drop, we get 16, which is going to make farming the set which you get from, which is not a great set, let's be honest, but the set that you get from the Void Abyss boss is going to be super easy to farm out now. But then the big one here is of course the quality certified ETA vouchers, which is the currency that you use on the weekend store to be able to buy the Void Abyss specific cosmetics, has now been, you know, sort of massively increased. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to just farm out the required amount to get the backpack item and to get the costume and then move on with the rest of your life. You can see that a bunch of the rewards which we were getting from this fight have all been deleted. Nano Compound, Quantum Crystal, Ion Accelerator, Precision Ion Accelerator, Quantum Incubator, Void Abyss, Metal Fragment, Kuiper Shard, and Gold have all been deleted, so the boss does not drop that anymore. Now, all of these things, deleted rewards, can be exchanged with quality certified ETA vouchers at the Intercept Battle Reward Exchange in the ETA shop. So in the weekend shop, there's going to be a way for you to exchange these components if you have an abundance of them. I, for example, have a fucking shit ton of these, so I'm going to be able to get a whole bunch of these vouchers and basically be able to use them to essentially buy stuff. Now, let's see here. Okay, they're just mentioning the stuff that's been added to the store. Okay, again, just quickly going through the director's comment to improve gameplay styles. Basically, they're saying here that battles, Void Abyss Intercept battles that ends in under 1 second and reward structure that requires excessive repetitions, we implemented the following changes. And now, basically what they're saying is, look, the thing is, for you to get the back ornament and the what's his name? The cosmetic, the outfit, you had to redo this boss multiple times, a lot of times, right? And so you would basically zone in. The easiest way to do this would be to zone in and essentially, you know, kill the boss in 1 or 2 seconds with whichever weapon you're using to do that. Serena with a sniper rifle, boom, there's the job is done. And then you'd basically just do this over and over and over and over and over until you have all the material. So what they've done now is they've made it, they've approached this in 2 different ways. One, they've made more of this material drop, which means less repetitions. And then secondly, what they've done is they've also made it more appealing to actually do this in groups, which kind of like, you know, is maybe a little bit more appealing than just grinding this out by yourself. There is one other thing that I wanted to call out as well, where they said, first, the playtime was adjusted in consideration of the extremely short battle duration that prevented strategic gameplays. It's literally what I said just now. So the point is that you were killing the boss so fast that you didn't have to learn mechanics. With this adjustment, we aim to bring out the necessity to employ attribute-based battle strategies. Okay, so again, they're saying that you need to be matching the attributes to kill the Void Intercept boss, but we were doing that already. Ice Maiden especially was designed to have a structure that shortens the clear time as players destroy its parts and gradually enhance the Descendant skill power. So the point here being that what you were doing with, for example, Serena and the Tormentors, you were just sniping the boss to death with ATAMs, and you were killing the boss in like less than 2 seconds. And here the idea is that you peel the armor plates off or the parts off, and that weakens the Void Intercept boss, and then basically the Void Intercept boss dies. So maybe the way how they keep this from, you know, being sniped, and again, I'm speculating all of this now, we're gonna have to see it in the game when we start testing. Of course, I'll make a video on that. Is my assumption is that all of these parts will will most likely add a huge amount of damage resistance to the boss, which means that you can't just right at the beginning snipe the boss on a weak point and kill it. You actually have to remove the parts, and as you remove the parts, it actually starts diminishing the damage reduction that the boss features, and then once you've removed enough parts, you can actually deal enough damage and then essentially take the boss down. To me, that means that most likely fast shooting weapons, last dagger, anything that you can basically have as many of these parts down in the shortest amount of time is going to work really well. So I'm assuming that, or maybe just you snipe off with 8 times, you have 3 shots. So you just snipe off 3 of the plates and then switch to, I don't know, Enduring Legacy and mow the boss down or something like that. We'll see. Like I said, it's difficult to sit here and speculate. We're going to have to check out the gameplay. Of course, there'll be a video for that coming. Next, the recruit/join party system has seen a massive overhaul. It's essentially been added next to the social tab. This is supposed to make it a lot easier for you to group up with people that have similar regions than you, ping than you, language than you, mastery rank than you, that are usually using specific descendants and all of that stuff. So this is going to be a way for you to I don't know, let's say for example you're like, dude, I just want to do all of the Void Intercept bosses and I only want Lepics to join. Okay, so I assume with this system you'll be able to say, look, I just want Lepics and I want English-speaking Lepics. I don't know how long it's going to take you to find that group, but then you can see how fun it is to have 4 Lepics versus a boss, or something like that. So this is a good system. This is something that in my opinion should have maybe in some way or form been in the game from the beginning, because traditionally this has been kind of like a sore point in the game, which has literally made a lot of people just go fuck trying to group up with stuff. Let me just grind everything out by myself. And honestly, a game like this, it loses a lot of the player base. Not all. I, for example, like playing solo, but I believe that for every one person that there is that likes to play solo, there's someone else who fucking detests it and wants to be in a group. So this is a good system to help those people out. All right, then let's see. With weapons, we can see multi-hit chance and multi-hit damage. This is a good section, by the way. Options have been added to weapon options. Changes were made to allow set individual module loading setting for each weapon if you have many of the same weapon. When saving a preset, okay, so that's just for you to be able to set different if you have multiples of the same weapon. So a lot of people only have one of an ultimate weapon, but there's also a lot of players who have farmed out multiple versions of the same ultimate weapon so that they can have different configurations for it and different substats and all that stuff. This is going to help those people with having different module loadout settings for those different weapons. So just for people that are having multiples of the same ultimate weapon. Then just I want to give a call out here because specifically, yes, it's this section here. So we know that we have, of course, weapon cores, right? And we have multi-hit and multi-hit chance and multi-hit damage are 2 stats which were added sort of at the same time or shortly after weapon cores were a thing, and so there aren't any dedicated cores for them, so there's no way for you to add these effects onto your weapon, right? But there are some weapons which drastically benefit from these new substats, if I can call them that. So this is something that they've looked at now, and they're saying that we listened to various opinions on how we should implement the multi-hit chance and damage stats into cores. The most popular suggestion was to add them to special augmentation or to hit augmentation. These are 2 augmentations which already exist in the game, right? If we put them into hit, it would be a competitive alongside stuff like critical hit and critical hit damage. I personally thought that was a shitty idea because those 2 stats are so sought after in general. I wouldn't say they're the most valuable stats, but they're certainly very valuable. And then having to compete with multi-hit chance and multi-hit damage to get these, where a lot of the times you might not be looking for multi-hit chance or damage because it's a very specific way to build a weapon, is annoying to me, the idea of it. So what they've actually decided to do is they've decided to make a brand new core for multi-hit damage as well as multi-hit chance, and they call this Hit Augmentation AB core. This will have hit chance and multiple hit damage as well as weak point damage. So to me that means that the only that it is going to be now, this does 2 cool things. It's going to be easier to hit critical hit damage now because hit chance and damage, because weak point damage has been removed, but it's cool because this is in its own dedicated slot, so you can roll for it if you specifically want that. That, however, is not available in this update and is only coming on June 19th from what I can see here. So just giving us a little bit of an insight as to what's coming. Then leaderboard rankings don't really care about that, then we have a new system that's been added that when you inspect another player, another user, you can actually view their descendant, which means that you can pretty much see what they have equipped and what their character looks like. This is a big feature. So a lot of the times you group up with people and you see them performing very well, and then you have to go through the cumbersome thing of asking them like, hey bro, what build are you building, you know, chatting and everything like that, and it's a fuck up. This means you can essentially just inspect them. It does however say here, if the descendant is in a different region from you or offline, their current equipment information may be reflected somewhat slowly. It doesn't say that it won't be, it just says slowly, so this is a good thing. Maybe we'll still be able to, you know, see something even if somebody's offline. It just takes a little while to fetch the data. All right. Core conversion is also added with this update. So we all know that we all have purple cores that we have an abundance of, and we have nothing that we can do with them, and we want to get rid of them. This is a system that's going to allow us to do a 3-to-1 conversion from one core that you don't, from 3 cores that you don't want into 1 core that you do want. There are, however, some things. First of all, only stage 10, so X cores, can be converted. Okay, which makes sense. It doesn't really make sense to convert anything lower than that, because the cost of this is also quite hectic. All right, so what this is it says each conversion costs 50,000 gold. So if you're converting 3 purples into 1 red, that's going to cost you 50,000 gold. If you're doing 10 conversions, that's a 500,000 gold. This to I would consider myself a whale in terms of gold, so I have many hundreds of millions of gold. So this is not such a prohibitive thing for me, but I am sure there are going to be some people who are going to be complaining about this cost. If the complaints are loud enough, I would assume that what this developer does is they usually just capitulate and change the shit, so they might bring this down. However, I think that, I mean, I would imagine that if you're in the position where you have an abundance of a certain core, a level 10 certain core, and you're looking for other cores, then perhaps gold is not really your biggest problem in the world. So it should actually be okay. So, in any case, then we have inversion reinforcement loadouts have been added. So inversion reinforcements is annoying because when you switch between different characters, you have to change them depending on, you know, like you have a certain inversion requirement for Serena when you're doing, you know, Purge, and then you have a different one when you're doing bosses. This allows you to have different loadouts, which is really cool. I love that. Then we also see the special operations hard difficulty has now again changed. We had Fortress and White Knight Gulch before, now it's Kingston and Sterile Land. I like this configuration, so super happy about that. Then we have some shop stuff, which I'm just going to go ahead and go right over. We have a new login event. Then we have a bunch of content improvements, which are some things here which I'd like to call out. We're getting close to the end now, guys. I promise. I know this video is stretching on a little bit. So they're making it so that grappling hooks can't collide with other players anymore. That's a huge W right there. They're also changing the drop rates to 100% for common, rare, ultimate, and transcendent tier modules in the main rewards for content completion. This is pretty big though, right? So this is traditionally, those have very low drop rates, and this is going to allow you to sort of get them a lot better or easier or faster. Then they've also adjusted some things with normal mode and so on. This is with the Void Vessal. I wanted to specifically call this out because this is fucking insane. So these materials here are the materials that you use for the food for your pets, right? For your dogs. There's 2 dogs in the game right now, and you have to get them to level 30, and you have to run Void Vessal a shitload of times so that you can get these materials, which are part of, alongside the blueprints that allow you to essentially research the food for the dogs to level them up. So this has essentially been doubled across the board. So that means that, I don't know, if you were, if it took you 40 fucking runs of Void Vessel to do 1 dog from 1 to 30, and I'm just throwing numbers out here, before, you know, statistically it should now take you almost half the time, which I'm a huge fan of. I already have both pets leveled fully, but there are going to be more pets added to the game, so of course, you know, this is going to help us in the future. This part was interesting to me because genetic information storage boxes are the boxes in the Void Vessel where you get the blueprints from, which is the 4th component to the food creation. So each one of these gives you more XP. The fortified supplement blueprint is the least, and then of course I think the ultimate is like the best. I'm not sure I'm not sure what the fuck this means, okay? Because I've always gone and made the joke and said that ultimate protein, which is the best one, the gold one, literally never drops in the fucking thing. And what I'm seeing here is that they're saying the previous drop rate was nothing. So, and now it's like 0.5% chance of dropping. So I don't know. This one's fucked up. At least there's like a 0.5% chance, but this would mean that I was correct that this shit that does not drop. I mean, which is weird because it's dropped for me twice in like 2,300 hours with the game. It's dropped for me twice. Okay, I mean saying 2,300 hours is a bit duplicious because that's not how long the Void Vessel has been around. But in hundreds, okay, hundreds of Void Vessel runs, I've only ever seen 2 of these ultimate protein compounds. So hopefully we'll see a bit more of these right now. All right, then you can see that the Sigma sector rewards have also been increased, so we're getting more nano components, and we are also getting more quantum crystals. So this just means that in any case, most players are running Sigma Sector at least twice every day because you always have some descendant that needs more arc board, fucking shit. So this just means that it's going to be more rewarding for you in terms of getting those components. They also had to do this because another way for you to get these components was to do the Void Abyss boss, and you don't get these from the Void Abyss boss anymore now. So Sigma Sector is pretty much like the best place to get these now, if maybe the only place. Then there's some infiltration adjustments here to normal. We're not going to worry too much about that. Special operations has also seen some reward increase here. And then here we have the Serena adjustment, or NERF, if you want to call it. So those that know how Serena works, one of the things that makes her so strong as a weapon-based descendant is her 4th ability, which is Redemption's Judgment. Basically, the higher you scale your HP, the higher it scales your damage. That's just it in a nutshell. This puts a cap on that now. So Serena's max HP is 39,000. Then your additional damage has a maximum of 312. Anything more than 39,000 HP, you are still capped at 312. So if you have 60 fucking thousand max HP, it don't matter. You don't go higher than the 312. Now, is this a complete and utter slaughter of Serena? Without testing it, just looking at the maths here and everything right now, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think Serena's still going to be powerful. She's not going to be as fucking ridiculous as she was before, but this is definitely not a complete slaughter. Again, I'll need to test it and everything like that, so I'm going to reserve judgment for now. But this is one of the things which made her so ridiculously overpowered compared to the other weapon-based descendants. So this is a way for them to rein it in. It is happening sooner than I thought that they would do it. Right? I thought they were going to let this go on for a little while longer and do it at the beginning of season 3. So they're doing it a little bit earlier, but this is it. We're going to be testing it, of course, and seeing how badly it affects her clear times in purge runs and with snipes and stuff like that. And of course, I'll bring that information to you. All right, then just some tooltip adjustments and stuff here. I think there's some UI UX kind of stuff here. I don't think there's anything else. There was one other thing which kind of like jumped out at me. Yeah, this is just a bunch of. So there are some corrected errors in the unique ability info windows for a lot of these ultimate weapons. To me, I was reading through this earlier, and a lot of these things to me look like some of it is just actually correcting the tooltip, and then some of it seems like it could be a nerf or it could be a buff. There's actually a lot going on here. Like, for example, Restored Relic corrected the explosion damage values of Cluster Round and affected the unique ability Ancient Technique. So these are the levels, of course, of Restored Relic, and then you can see firearm damage times 5%, and they're saying that's previously it's been changed to firearm damage times 2%. Now, it's not clear to me whether this is just them correcting the tooltip, meaning that instead of 5% being applied, the game was actually applying 2%, but the tooltip said 5%. Or if this is an adjustment in terms of like it used to do 5%, now it's going to do 2%. I don't follow the language here, and maybe someone in the comments can help me out with this. But to me, this seems like just a tooltip correction. If this, however, is them actually adjusting the values, then in some cases these are nerfs. Like this would be a nerf. All right. So, in any case, we'll look into that. We've reached the end here, and we've kind of like scrolled over. There was one thing. You guys are gonna laugh. It's not really something to even make such a big deal about. But basically, you know that when you teleport into the capital, right? Into the here we go. So when you teleport into the Albion, right? The fucking city. There's two places where you can spawn. There's the main spawn, which is at the sort of like the right side of the city, and then there's the one that's in front of the weekend shop. So you can actually now in the UI you can designate which one of these is your default one, which means whenever you teleport to Albion, instead of always defaulting to the one that's on the right, which is the dispatch lobby, you can actually default to the ETA shop. I know that this, considering everything that we've gotten here, this is like a very very small thing, but it's nonetheless something which annoyed the shit out of me. So I'm super super happy about that. But that's it for the patch notes, guys. The video was a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but we kind of like went through everything. Of course, I will be doing follow-up videos testing a lot of the stuff that we saw in these patch notes. Of course, words on paper do not necessarily translate to testing it in the game, and I'm looking forward to trying out some of these things and of course trying the new Abyss boss and all of that. But let me know in the comments down below what's the thing that excites you the most about this patch. Like I said, it's not the most feature-rich patch, but it has some things in it which have been requested by large groups of the player base for the longest of time. So I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are rejoicing with what they got. And if you're one of them, sound off. Let me know in the comments if this is enough to get you to fire up the game again and try it out again. Other than that, thank you very much for the support. Thanks for watching. And as always, fucking cheers.